One button, and you're live in front of thousands of people.
Hey, I'll take it any
Yeah.
day, any day.
Hey, good morning and welcome to today's edition of Avero Live. I have a really special guest here today, my friend Dustin Bainbridge
Good to see you, buddy. Good to
with
see you.
United Path.
Yeah.
He is all about educational tech, K through 12 and beyond,
Yes.
and the intersection of education, technology, and now AI. And he's been there before. He
Yeah.
has he has built and sold a couple of companies,
Yes, sir.
and all in EdTech.
All in ed tech,
Yeah,
mostly assessment and curriculum. Correct.
awesome. So before we get in, I wanna invite the audience to send questions. Get in the chat box, send your questions, comments, because we want to keep this interactive. Dustin has agreed to be here all day. I'm kidding. We have a lunch to get to after this, but really excited about learning about you, your company, why EdTech, and what you're trying to do now. But before that, if you haven't told us already where you're joining from, please pop it into the chat box. Um, Go subscribe to our channel. Lots of great content on there, just like this. And I'm really excited about this conversation today. Uh, Tell me about you, because I don't think people grow up wanting to be in an EdTech entrepreneur. That's not a thing when you're growing up.
Yeah,
So
no,
where'd you start?
my path was really focused on kind of grit and hard work. I grew up with my dad, and he was a butcher for almost 40 years, and so just 7 days a week, working your tail
Yeah.
off in order to really just put food on the table. I remember vividly as I was in high school, because I thought the path was, which obviously is not a bad path,
Yeah.
is go graduate high school, get a job, and stay there for 40 years, because that was the kind of generational cycle what people would do. And I remember him telling me one comment was, "Son, I want you to work with your brain and not your back." And I thought, right at the time, I was like, "No, I just want to make money."
Mm.
So it encouraged me to go to college, and really opened my eyes up through that process. And I kind of started seeing this kind of connection between, wow, if you go and get an education, look at the opportunities that open up and exist for you. And it's about investing in yourself. And so I thought this would be a great resource. And during college, I worked really two jobs. I was a maintenance supervisor, or a custodian. I wake up at 3 a.m. and go clean the rec center.
And
And
where was this?
this was at UC Riverside,
Okay,
so
California.
University of California at Riverside. And I needed some extra money to pay rent. So I remember seeing this at the rec center. It said, "Hey, get a job, become an SAT tutor for $25 an hour." And I was like, $25 an hour? How much beer could I buy with that?
Yeah,
You know,
that's
it
a
was
lot of
just
money.
as a college kid, and it was just a great thing. So I remember walking into the Princeton Review, and they said, "Hey," because it's a big test preparation company that helps kids
Yeah.
for SAT, ACT, MCAT, all the graduation or
Mhm.
graduate level stuff. And they said, in order for you to be a tutor, you have to take the SAT or test, and you have to score in the 95th percentile. And I was like, "Well, when can I take it?" They're
Yeah.
like, "Well, anytime you want." I was like, "Give me the test." I
Schedule it.
need $25 an hour. So that's what kind of got me on my journey set
Yeah.
for kind of understanding the educational process, both from a family perspective, but also a business perspective in that way. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then uh, you built companies after that. It's like this. What did you do post the SAT?
So I was leaving Princeton Review. It was about a couple of years, about 3 years after I graduated, because I got
Yeah.
a job there full time. And the interesting part about this was I'd left the Princeton Review, and I get this call from the school district in California, and it was a gentleman I'd known for some time. He was like, "Hey, Dustin, do you have anything for the California High School Exit Exam?" It's an acronym. It's called the CASE, which was basically a state mandated exam
Mhm.
that all kids starting their sophomore year had to take a math and a reading section of it. And if you didn't pass, you didn't get a diploma.
Oh wow.
So imagine working your tail off for 4 years. You can't pass this test, which was very low grade level standard.
Yeah.
And you're just not a good test taker. They sent out over 100,000 kids over a certain year period during that time frame, from about 2007 till 2013, with no diploma. So you had the option of going to get your GED. So I said, "What do you need?" He's like, "I'd like to know where my kids are at before they take this actual test." And so I'm like, "Well," he's like, "Do you have any benchmark tests, like practice tests?" And I was like, Yeah, when do you need it by? Didn't have anything.
Yeah.
He goes, well, I need it in the next 3 months because we're going to do these assessments. So I went home and I printed out. I went online because all these state exams, the blueprints are online.
Yeah.
I remember I was in my garage. I just got married. I was in my garage looking all the state standards, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can create a benchmark because they're just basic exams by grade level. So I did. And fast forward from 2006 to 2013, I'll just never forget. I had pallets of paper lined up in my driveway, and I was printing. So I would charge the school $7.75 a kit for this exam. I'd ship them the exam with scan forms. They would administer the exam and ship me back the scan forms. I'd score it right away and get them back the results that looked like the state. And the cost to me was 46 cents. And I was selling tens and tens and tens of thousands of the exam daily, all throughout California. And it was a wild ride. And it was a running joke. It was just like I'd have pallets of paper and printers in my garage. I'd have a partnership with FedEx Kinko's. And that's what kind of got me in the entrepreneurship mindset of thinking about, like, when you have a state-funded exam and you have kind of the drive to do it.
What's that?
Static on the mic.
Oh, can you not hear us? But can you hear what we're saying? No?
No. Is that better?
Terrible static on LinkedIn. Okay, sorry about that.
Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, you're good.
No, thank you.
I just
good.
wanted everyone to be able to-
That's why we got post-production.
Tell me how that sounds. And,
Is that better?
Yeah, no one's complained on the internet, so that's good.
That's good. That's
Yeah.
good.
I don't know. Let's see if this is better. See if the complaining stops.
I love it.
Hello?
Check 1, 2. Is that
Much better. All right.
All right.
Cool.
All right. So the big thing, my takeaway from this was, whenever you have a product in the educational space that's tied to accountability, whether that be federal or state accountability, the product goes from do we need this or do we want this?
Yeah.
And so, because these assessments were tied to kind of academic outcomes, and I mean, there were principals losing their jobs because their performances weren't going up year over year because of these assessments.
Mhm.
So it kind of took off from there. So that was my first opening to kind of what entrepreneurship was, which is, as you know, working 70, 80, 90 hours a week.
Yeah.
Just grinding away just because you enjoy it. It becomes less of work and more of just kind of a passion of what you're doing. So,
Yeah. So you built that.
Yeah.
And then had an exit.
So I built that up, and what happened with that process was, whenever the state came aboard with the senator, said, hey, why are we spending over $100 million on this assessment when we're just pushing kids into the world with no diploma?
Mhm.
Let's get rid of it. So I saw this transition in our kind of educational climate, where we went from let's just get kids out of high school to let's get kids into college. And that's what got me to start my company, Horizon Education, at the time, which was 2013. Specifically around doing that state assessment stuff, but for college readiness, because a massive block grant came out starting in California. It's a $200 million block grant. And we essentially built digital curriculum and assessments to fit within that block grant. And that's what kind of took off. So from 2013 to 2022, built that EdTech company up to, 29 states using the product. And we were acquired by private equity in June of 2022. So it was a great experience, and able to kind of see what it is to kind of build that up, and then also build a company during the pandemic, during education, because it was quick pivots, especially within the climate of like, we need these tools right now. And to be able to then sell the company and then work for the private equity for a few years to get that experience was quite helpful as well.
Right. So curriculum. So testing to curriculum, and now you're into SIS.
Student information systems, which is a whole nother world for me, because I have not, I've been around student information systems for quite some time, and know a lot about them, but to actually start dealing with kind of the rules and regulations and laws behind student data, it's an educational process for myself, which has been great. But it's dealing with taking this these gobs of student data that exist in these systems, and that's really what when you look at a school district's budget and you look at the line items that associate with that budget, one of the largest expenditures is a student information system.
Right.
And essentially, these systems are pretty archaic. They've been around for many years. The largest ones that are like they control most of the market share are owned by private equity. So when you think about private equity, in some cases, it's innovation's not the big thing. It's more like profitability, or they purchase a bolt-on acquisition. So with that mindset, it was what's going on with this particular data, and how do we make sense of it? Because it relies on us as parents.
Yeah.
It relies on the counselor. It relies on the educator to take millions of data points and go, okay, what do I do with this? And there's different resources in terms of data visualization tools, but to actually have actionable plans that are instant, kind of got me fascinated around that. And it all started, my daughter comes home from school, and this was about a year and a half ago. She's got a piece of paper at the table and she's getting frustrated.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are you doing? You doing your homework? And she's like, no, my counselor sent me home with this piece of paper, and they asked me to take more ownership of my grades and the rest of the class she had mentioned. And I'm like, what are you trying? She's like, I know this honors class is worth this AP class is worth this. And I was like, hey, I have a secret for you. She's like, what? I was like, just look in your student information system. It's all there.
Yeah.
And of course,
on. Anyway, yeah, we're back.
and so essentially that's what got down this path, because I realized systems were archaic. There's so much information that we could be doing things with.
Yeah.
And we just need support. I mean, schools need support. And so that's essentially what kind of came up with from the kind of brainchild of my daughter, Unified Track.
Nice.
So, yeah.
So you guys work with all of these available student information systems.
So the go-to-market was in California with a student information system called ARIES. And there's quite a few student information systems across the U.S., nearly probably 200 or so.
Yeah.
About 7 or 8 control vast majority of the market. But integrate with the other student information systems. So once you get to a certain revenue milestone, then we kind of look and say, okay, who are they? Like here in Knoxville, Knox County and around, we have Aspen, which is a big one here in the public school system. Midwest, we have Skyward. We have Infinite Campus, that's kind of East Coast and South, and then we have Power School and some of the other larger institutions that are doing that. But that's part of our growth plan over the next couple of years, is to integrate with more of these systems as we continue to go. But it's wild, man, to be able to take this student data and just completely transform what how people are looking at data. Because I mean, you look at all these large language models and these machine learning and what you can do now within seconds. Yeah, it's wild.
So how much AI? Because almost to the end of 2025, we have to talk about how you're using or leveraging AI technologies and crunching this data.
So part of my experience through this process and kind of this personal and professional lens is what I'm studying in school, because I'm a doctoral student at the University of Pennsylvania, is I'm studying the impact school counselors have on addressing chronic absenteeism, but what data protocols we're looking at and what more efficiencies can be put in place. So when I met with over 100 school counselors over the past year and a half, I asked them all the same thing. I said, what makes a student truly exceptional? Like, what is, from your perspective, because you're around students all day, and they pretty much unanimously said the same thing. It's like family engagement. That's what's the separation of aspect. But going back to my mindset of knowing growing up with my dad, like, it wasn't that he didn't care about the academic journey. He just didn't know what questions to ask, because he just didn't come from that. And so how do we do that? And so what we're doing with AI is through these kind of automated progress reports, is we are taking the data from these systems and leveraging large language models and different algorithms that we've built, and we're simulating what good parenting and what counseling sounds like. from that student. So imagine being able to get just this constructive feedback based on the data that it's obviously recognizing within these systems, these millions of data points from your absentee rates to your GPA to your performances, to your behavioral aspect issues, to your learning difficulties, to your IEPs, your 504. So everything's there. And what it's doing is it's obviously not only giving you feedback, but it's providing a response intervention plan for you. So it's like, oh, hey, hey, Dustin, you're having some great successes this past month. Keep that up. Here's some areas we're starting to see a trend downward.
Mhm.
It could be your attendance metrics. And by the way, you need to talk to your counselor about these 3 things. And that counselor also gets alerted as well. So what we're starting to see what we're starting to see is students going to see their counselors with more of a position of strength, having more guided conversations, because it's wild. I mean, 500 kids to one school counselor by grade level is our national average right now.
Wow.
Yeah, it's how do you make an impact?
Yeah, and their job is to guide you. And how are they doing it without deep dives into data? Like, what do they have today outside of your product?
I mean, a lot of it's is manual data processing, manual data queries,
or manual history, right? I know a student who can work with them in the past.
And if you look at like right now across the country, you got 471 students to one school counselor by grade level. I mean, some states like Arizona, you're looking at above 700 students per grade level to one counselor.
Yeah. And
obviously, you can correlate the graduation rates in Arizona are lower than they are, say, in California because of the number of counselors to students. But a lot of it is obviously the relational aspect. But imagine you having 500 close friends that you had to manage on a weekly basis or monthly basis. It's very difficult.
Right.
So what you end up doing is you end up kind of focusing on kind of cohorts or segments that say students who are having the most challenges, let's just say in terms of behavioral challenges. I mean, when you and I went to school, they used to call them guidance counselors, which was, we're going to guide you through this. Now they're called school counselors because they're dealing with academic progress. They're dealing with college readiness. They're dealing with career readiness. They're dealing with behavioral issues. They're dealing with social emotional issues. I mean, there's so many things now that they deal with, and you end up having a lot of kids fall through the cracks.
Yeah. So this reminds me of a project I did with the state of Oregon. This is like 2013, 2014. Their grand vision was having a longitudinal student information system, or a student longitudinal data system, whatever. And they wanted to capture everything that happens with that child, right? So you just talked about healthcare, Health and Human Services was involved, Child Protective Services, and the governor at the time wanted to capture all of that in one system from kindergarten through them entering the workforce. And it was kind of a pipe dream at the time, right? 10 years ago, you don't have the data systems or the technology to bring all of this together. Is what you're doing heading in that direction? Because how are you getting the data to outside of what the student's doing in school? What's happening at home or in the community? How does that get correlated?
And that's a great question. And I think, as far as kind of entry point number one, whatever lives in these student information systems, we can grab onto. There's the aspect of I asked my daughter, like, why aren't you more involved with your student information system? And it was pretty much the same thing as I realized that inputs equal outputs. And essentially what that means is if a student, when you log into a student information system, it's a bunch of static data. It's a bunch of just, raw, numbers and cents. And so students, when there's no engagement around like, hey, what do I do this? Now we have the ability for students to input specific areas of focus.
All right.
Simulate different pathways. So we're starting to see more kids and we're collecting different data points based on kind of entry points of students as well as educators. But because there's so many solutions that connect with student information systems, we can be able to start to pull that information in, but also look at external stuff. And this is the exciting part for us right now, because I get the question a lot is when you go back to your longitudinal data focal point, you say, okay, what is the design focus of the United States Department of Education? And a lot of it was Not all, but a lot of it was around research design and elements around how are we tracking graduation rates across the country by state, by cohorts, by subgroups, by demographics. How are we doing the same thing around absenteeism rates? Because obviously absenteeism post the pandemic, even before, are grave areas of concern because there's a lot of money tied to it. So all these things that are being kind of dwindled down and some of it just removed from their purview are now being pushed to the states.
Mm.
And so the states are still going to be held accountable for all of that. But you have an option now because it's pushed to your district is what do? Do you hire 3 or 4 FTEs to manage this now? Or do you use a system that can obviously do this for you with instant using, leveraging AI and different data analytics? So we're starting to look at different data protocols that exist outside that we can triangulate some of that data, being able to push in. Because we notice that if we're putting more inputs in from different sources, it's going to allow us to have more of a holistic view of these kids, not only their inputs, but third-party inputs as well as the student information system in there, and getting some stronger data points from there. So our next venture, which I'm excited about, is within the actual team, is starting probably Q2 next year. Having the ability to ask defined questions about your data.
Mm-hmm.
And get specific insights on that data. Because I just met with the superintendent last week that said, hey, we spent a week looking over our absenteeism rates and who are our kids, where are they falling into, what subgroups, who are the kids that have historical patterns. And we spent a whole week looking through this. And by the end of the week, we're exhausted and we come up with probably just a suggested guideline, but to be able to do that in seconds.
Yeah.
And to be able to kind of just start asking questions, create those models to be able to do that. It's just the design always flows back to, in closing, which is how do we get educators to spend more time, which is the most important, which is in front of the kids versus in front of a computer leveraging and looking at data.
So who's your audience? Like, are you selling this to, obviously, to schools and superintendents, but is there a parent focused portal?
Yeah, absolutely. So great question. So yes, we sell this directly to school districts right now. Now, the interesting kind of workaround around this is school districts own their data. Regardless of what system houses it, school districts own their data. So even if they were to move a system to system, they still, that data resides with the school. So we partner with the school districts to be able to do so. And the amount of data privacy stuff that we've had to work through with SOC 2 certification, and we've had to go through in terms of our audits. It's one of the things that's very important to us as we go through. But the biggest thing is once we partner with these schools is being able to have a very defined onboarding and implementation plan that includes also engaging with the counselors and educators, but also the parent and student side of things. Because it's the most like impactful thing that gets me up in the morning is if a parent can go into speaking with an administrator or a counselor to school with a clear focus of what the conversation is going to be about because of the analytics that are provided to them, saying, hey, here's where my kid is at, here's why this parent needs to see the counselor, and here's particular areas of focus. That's very like prescriptive and sent there. You're starting to see parents now have these less aggressive conversations. Mm-hmm. It's just like, hey, how can I help at home now? Yeah. Based on what I'm
You should sell children, and this. So we were talking about parents, so student themselves, right? You said you need for owner of data. So what are cool things you're seeing from students that have access to data can have meaningful conversations with? What sort of ownership can they take? And not, are you finding students are taking options that they want to pursue, or right, students and counselors and having conversations?
Absolutely. One of the things that off pretty is the whole simulation. So because of access to the codes, which is basically classes available at school, right? We have just a AV is a that's why we got the post-production, baby.
I know.
I love it. Post-production.
We're still on. We're still on.
We are?
You're good.
Oh, we are.
Yeah.
I just texted my friend to say, are we still on?
We're still on. Okay. We're choppy, but we're on.
That's just normally how we are, though.
We're just choppy people. Okay. You're telling me. I'm sorry. You were telling me about.
Oh, the simulation aspect. So let's just say you as a student just finished your freshman year in high
Mhm.
school, and you want to go to UT. And you finish your freshman year, you have a 3.2 GPA. Reality is it's probably not going to be the standout GPA to get into UT right now. So what the system does in terms of a simulation aspect is you set some of your strengths and goals that it's obviously adapting to you. It will actually take the next 3 years worth of course codes and tell you these are the classes that you need to take
Mhm.
and the grades you need to get in each class per semester in order to get to whatever your goal is. So let's say you want 3.9.
Yeah.
It'll map it out all the way through, and it keeps the engagement with that student, with that counselor, and that family. Like, are you continuing to be on track with that goal? And so it's not a guessing game, because that's how it's always been. It's like, all right, I didn't get the grade I wanted this semester. Like, what do I need to do next year? Like, kids don't know. And so to be able to map it out and simulate that aspect, that's one kind of a modeling choice that we're doing on there. And then based on the kind of analytics that we're pulling, let's say you have a 3.5. It's feeding you based on your goals, universities and perhaps current technical schools that fit within your goals, your GPA requirements, your test scores. So now let's just say you get a D in a class your
Yeah.
junior year. Those universities are going to be that through the algorithm being pushed to you are going to be a little different looking, the next semester.
Yeah.
So it's constantly getting kids refreshed around not having to spend time like looking like, where do I fit in? It's like, we're just constantly feeding suggestions to kids to be able to kind of want to use their data and focus on it more.
Yeah. Now, is this school system, school district specific, or is there in your roadmap, you're going to open it up to general public to say, okay, here's my student information data combined with the national average or my county or my state. Where do I stand?
Yeah, there's a lot of different verticals. I think, that's one of the things that we're kind of thinking through kind of. I love it, dude.
Pivot. You just said pivot. We're gonna pivot. I'm just gonna go to this.
How's that? Is that good? That's
good. Let's see if someone complains. All right. You were saying the product roadmap.
Yeah, as you look at verticals up and down, I mean, things that we kind of think through is like within higher ed. I mean, think about the higher education institutions that also use student information systems. We have this kind of across the country. Students typically, did you know the most common reason? I didn't realize this. Most common reason students drop out their first year in college.
What's that?
Take a guess. Take a wild guess.
I don't know. They don't have transportation.
They can't get along with a roommate. It's the social aspect. That's the number one reason. I mean, there's other things like missing home and academic,
but
challenges.
they drop out because they don't like the roommate.
They just get in this social anxiety aspect. They just can't live with somebody or be around somebody their first year. So that's the number one reason. I didn't realize that. I was reading an article about that. So the verticals, as I was talking about, is in higher education, being able to capture kids early on before they drop out of school. Because think about every time the University of Tennessee admits a student who accepts it and they leave after their first year or first semester, that's lost revenue for the next 3 years.
Yeah.
And so being able to be able to associate absenteeism and risk factors associated with that are one vertical. And then you obviously your vertical down as your middle schools and your elementary schools. But there's a lot of longitudinal data we can start looking at comparative to based on the predictive analysis of what's this district doing in this state that's effectively has similar subgroups and demographics, and what can they be doing over in say California versus New York versus Tennessee, and being able to translate some of those best practices from there.
So how do you guys stay compliant with, like, FERPA comes to mind, right? It's the privacy rules that regulate data or privacy in education. So when you go sign up a school district, how does that work?
Yeah, so part of the early process I wanted to kind of get us into was completing the SOC 2 certification, which is basically a audit, a whole process. It took about 8 to 9 months to do so, to get everything set up to make sure that our process with handling data was to the utmost standard of what these school districts are looking for. So finishing that, every state has their own kind of individualized data. Student data privacy agreements, typically statewide. Sometimes the larger districts have their own unique, maybe offset. We started this in California because that's where I was from, and kind of just the large student information system out there, Aries, it controls a lot of the market. But California has their own NDPA. that we provide to school districts upon contracting. Because that was a big thing, is when a district is interested in working with us, I'm providing them already kind of a pre-filled California NDPA proposal, everything that they need to kind of get started. But it's just making sure that the protocols match what their expectations are, and dealing with student data. Because it's like you said, it's a whole new world for us. But having to go through these audits every 3 months with kind of these SOC 2 audits, make sure that, we're set up for any sort of challenges that may exist, for any data breaches and so forth.
So our clients are the same, right? We work with government, and trying to sell technology into the government is a long process.
Yeah.
Right. It's not as easy as, you like my product, here, buy it. It's
Yeah.
a long process. And now when you start talking about AI enabled products, there's also a pushback on people not trusting, what happens to the data after.
Yeah.
I know you've SOC 2 compliant and all that, but there's just this fear, uncertainty, lots of bad news about AI. Are you facing some of those headwinds?
It's a great question. I think that, I went around and I found about a dozen mid sized districts, and I asked them all, like, what are they doing to kind of start the movement around AI? And surprisingly, as you probably know, as well, just as well as a lot of people, education is probably one of the slowest moving industries, and so not having the clear directive plan in place is a challenge. I'm finding that these more like early entry market processes, like being a partner with them and navigating through this with them, has been more of a conversational piece versus like, what are you doing with our data? It's AI. I think they're excited in most cases about AI in terms of the efficiencies around it. But I think, with some of these more forward facing, faster paced organizations or industries, we would probably get a lot more of that. But I think it's just, like the way we're positioning this is like the entry point with AI in your district and how you leverage AI. And we're doing this and building in conjunction, because it's the most wild thing. Check this out. And this goes into leveraging AI as well. This kind of opened my eyes up. So last summer, if you wanted to build feature A and B, you sat down with your design team and you spend, a couple of weeks creating the wireframe, designing out how it's going to add to your MVP, do these things. It's probably going to cost you over 5 months, these feature A and B, $50,000-$60,000 just for these two features. Now with this, 4 months ago, we just started this advent of vibe coding, which, it's a big buzzword now, where you plug in your instance into a large language model and you get to design things. So we'll have customers who are thinking about AI stuff, and to actually physically show them. I had a customer last week, 3 customers actually, say, hey, we really like your product, but if you had these 2 things in here, like, we would buy it tomorrow, just because it'll help us sell this, because it would close out the other renewals in place. So I contacted our CTO, and we got a couple of computer science guys, one from UT, one from Penn, who are computer science degree majors. And I'm like, okay, we need this. So we literally build out those features over a weekend, vibe coded them, sent them over to our senior developer on a Monday. He spent till Wednesday just looking through the code, and I went back that next Thursday and I was like, check it out, it's already done. And they're like, what? I mean, AI works on kind of both ends as far as production quickness in terms of being able to get it in front of the customer, but to actually have something, the customer was like, I love AI. Like, this is crazy.
No, I mean, I'm completely on board with that. And I think, I'm going to get on a soapbox here a little bit, but that feature and that capability is going to upend all kinds of software markets, right? Because what we see is, most of our work is in the ERP space.
Yep.
And the market is, it's competitive, but like there's 3 or 4 players that own it.
Yep.
In GovTech. And what we find is you'll move from system A to system B because 20% of this system doesn't work for you, and now you're in this space where some other 20%, 30% fails. Yeah. And you're back in that circle, right? With how quickly you can iterate product now. Crazy. You should be able to plug in those. It's like almost Lego bricks. Here, you like this one or that one better? Yeah. And if you don't like that one, I'll come back next week with something new. And it's just going to be very exciting once people get that right.
And I think the one thing, and I was very I wouldn't say I was very turned off in the beginning, but I was very one of the things I've seen kill a lot of companies is kind of this aspect of feature chasing, because you're
Yeah.
always kind of trying to build. But with the new way of doing things, you can be very systematic, very cost prohibitive. Like you can be a lot more intentional with that and a lot more impactful by
Mhm.
by utilizing these new abilities to code versus like the old ways of doing things.
Yeah.
And it's a wild ride in terms of
Yeah.
what we're about to see.
It's just speed, and I think that's great for our customers, because they don't have the in-house.
Yeah.
Most of them don't have the in-house talent to build
Yeah.
stuff that might be useful to them.
Yeah.
And closed systems don't allow you to actually build and bolt things onto
Yeah.
them. But all of that's changing. We're gonna take some audience questions. Let me sift through these. You don't sound good comments. All right. Do you see AI and automation shaping the future of academic advising, perhaps through predictive analytics that flag at-risk students early, or intelligent scheduling tools that anticipate demand before registration spikes?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, one of the things that we're starting to see with AI, especially in education, is it's not going to replace the person.
Yeah.
Because within education, like systemically, that individual has to have that human connection with that student to be able to kind of affect change. I think where I see it becoming more effective is the automation aspect of being able to, from a risk modeling, for example, like which kids, like the system that we're dealing with is like which kids are on track to drop out in the next 6 weeks, and why. What is this? What is the predictive analytics? And obviously working through those biases, but to be able to look at historical data, compare it to current data, and be able to be right in front of that educator saying, hey, you need to meet with this kid today. This is why, and this is kind of the corrective action that you should be taking. That's where I see in terms of the predictive value being a big kind of time saver of catching those kids. Because if we think about just a school that has 2,500 high school kids,
Yeah.
and there's 4 or 5 counselors, I mean, the counselors are dealing with the students who are kind of sifting to the bottom, and the ones that are way at the top, and everybody in the middle is kind of just being kind of
On their own.
on their own. And how do you make sure that those kids on their own don't continually fall into that smaller bucket of kids? And so that risk modeling is going to be important, as well as that kind of intelligent scheduling, as the question asked, is going to be huge, because this is all time
Yeah.
associated with them.
Yeah. Are you strictly in the K-12 space, or are you in higher ed also?
Just K-12 right
For
now.
now.
I mean, there's obviously a vertical to be able to kind of move in that direction, but
Yeah.
right now it's the K-12, just because it's the biggest impact right now in terms of what's happening in public education in terms of support needed.
Yeah. And public education only. You're not
There's so right
private.
now public, but private, there's a big market for this as well.
Mhm.
Probably even so much more. But I mean, I think right now for the high stakes and high needs in public education.
So, there's a lot of chatter about AI again. The marketing around AI is so powerful that people, Copilot's going to change your life. And I'm sorry, but it's not the most powerful product on the market. So, how do you, again, going back to adoption on the client side, right? We are facing these issues where clients will call us and say, hey, Copilot doesn't work for me, but they haven't done the work of making sure the data is right, that it's in the right space, that it's clean and useful. How much pre-work do your clients need to do to take advantage of your system?
So that's a great question. I can tell you're thinking through this, because it's exactly the opportunity and challenge that we come across in these cases. Sometimes we'll walk into a school or a district where it's very clean, and a lot of this data needs to be clean, because you're providing these reports in terms of the overall reports to the state and so forth as part of your kind of accountability plan. But part of our onboarding process is to make sure that because we're pulling the raw data out, and we can help out with cleaning up a lot of that, but when we're dealing with attendance data that needs to be obviously inputted every day, when we're dealing with kind of academic data that needs to be put in either monthly or semester wise, there is human error with our system, we're able to catch that instantly, and then obviously work with the customer to kind of do that. So once we get the foundational tools set up from the start, the ongoing process is pretty seamless. But there are districts where you look in their student information system, you're like, oof, You gotta spend a little time through the onboarding to get them up, and overall they appreciate it because we've caught a lot of things that have just been sitting there for a long time.
Yeah.
So,
all right, let's take some more questions. What's the biggest data standardization challenge for K through 12 right now?
the biggest data standardization challenge. I think there's, like for example, we have a challenge right now, like for example, in the state of Tennessee, there. Well, and I go back to my days back in the college and career space. We've all heard about the SAT and ACT. I mean, the ACT here in Tennessee is the state test. It's when we think there's kind of two avenues. There's college readiness, and then there's state required and mandate. I remember reading articles about the state of Tennessee when the pandemic was happening. Like, we have 100% ACT completion rate.
I saw that.
And it was because that's a big thing for the state. And there are other states, like you got Illinois that's ACT, you got Michigan that's SAT. So they use these tests. Now, these tests are what they call norm reference tests. So what you're learning in the classroom, which are state standards, and what you're doing on this SAT or ACT, there's not a lot of overlap. And so one is a standards-based aligned exam, one is a norm reference exam. So what we're starting to see is a dichotomy. It's like we're seeing the unstandardized process of like what you're learning in the classroom is not translating in a lot of ways to getting ready for these big high-stakes tests. So it's been an issue, especially in the 29 states, is you have a lot of kids who are doing really well in school, but they're not doing well in terms of these high-stakes tests. And it's the process, because they're apples to oranges in terms of that. So in terms of trying to standardize that process, either making the tests more efficient to match what's being taught in the classroom, or changing the standards, which is not going to happen in terms of the academic standards to be more in line with the tests. That's the biggest challenge right now that I see in terms of just getting kids ready for kind of post-secondary education or the career force. And,
I'm going to switch gears in a little bit, like just the future of education, right? I mean, when I went to school, we didn't have computers, right? I had access to my first computer when I was maybe 16 years old. And now you have the ability to learn anything in your pocket. Within 30 minutes, you can be an expert on, student information systems or whatever. What's the place of AI in education going forward? Because you talk to educators, and there's a debate about AI generated essays and reports, and how do you know what's been generated by the student and what's their original work versus what came out of ChatGPT, for example. There's a place for AI enabled education. What do you think that is?
Well, I think what's taken off right now, and will continue to have some solid legs underneath it, is our teacher-supported tools around AI. I know there's big companies like Magic School AI, and I know here in Knoxville we have Teachcraft, and these tools that save time for educators to create more efficient things, like auto-generated lesson plans, auto-generated quizzes. I mean, these are things that help the teacher navigate. So teacher tools have really taken off. That's like the first stage of like the AI kind of influx in terms of education. I do see like we've gotten kind of this push from the federal government to kind of involve AI more during the school day. I think that next phase is going to be looked at in terms of like the student data, but everything is going to come down for the educational process. Is I get to work at 7:30 in the morning at my school, for example. That's as an educator, and I'm done at 4:00 on just generally, unless I'm doing sports or anything as an administrator. But that's a short amount of time during the day, and I have to effectively make change and deal with all of these things. So if AI can help me be more efficient in terms of me supporting my kids, then I think that whatever tool that's going to be is going to allow for just that open opportunity to engage, because it's not going to replace the teacher. It's not going to replace the counselor. I think that there are going to be tools that help support some of these initiatives when you have 500 kids to one, and the average school counselor right now across the country is spending 6 minutes per year per student talking around college and career readiness. Like, how do we offset either giving back more time to the counselors or creating a tool that's AI driven that will help spend more time on that kind of college career aspect of that conversation? So I think that we're just at a lot of industries are way ahead of education, but I think right now it's about time saving associated tools, teachers are really the drivers right now, and then we're going to start seeing more student data being overtaken, especially when we get more guidance from the federal government on like how are districts going to manage more from a state to federal level around absenteeism and graduation rates and that. So
6 minutes per year per student.
yes,
That's national. National.
So national data shows that the average school counselor only has enough time to spend 6 minutes per student per year talking about college and career readiness.
Mhm.
And at best, a student in high school will get 2 touch points with the school counselor for that academic year. And it's not because they don't want to; it's just there's
Yeah.
no time.
So where can people learn more about Unified?
So I mean, really at unifiedtrack.com is the best place to kind of start looking through kind of some of the things that were designed around. Obviously, released in California, and my daughter's been kind of pushing a lot of this stuff out, getting excited. And that was a big thing that I look back, and it really kind of it's been an exciting part of my life. So the first 7-8 years of my daughter's lives, I was never home. Like I was traveling all around the U.S. I mean, my wife used to make the running joke. We'd have a calendar on the fridge, and I was gone over 200 days plus in a year of the 365. And even when I was home, I was disconnected because I was trying to do work. Because when you're, as you know, building a business, it's you're going to do it, or somebody else is going to crush you doing it. And so, like literally acclimating more with my kids. I mean, I always say the best thing from a time associated standpoint in my family was the pandemic. And like I said, it took the world shutting down to actually be enclosed with your kids. But now that my daughters are in high school, like this has been like when we kind of thought this idea, I made my daughter was super jazzed. She sat down with me, we designed the wireframe together. And not only we designed the wireframe, once we designed the wireframe, we met with the developers to design the MVP. So she'd do her homework till 10 o'clock at night, and then we get on for an hour and a half every night and meet with the developers to talk about kind of, what color patterns, how does this button fit here, what goes on here in terms of what, the integration aspects with the student information system. And then once we got the MVP, putting together kind of the sales and promo stuff and just kind of having her this experience. And I mean, she's a junior now in school, and I think that to see this evolution, like I get to share this with her. And I think that's probably the primary reason my wife was like, okay, you can start another business if you do this with your daughters.
That's amazing.
But to see that and have her wheels turn in her head going, wait a minute. Because we're going, I applied, we got into this kind of accelerator through Harvard, and during their fall break, we're flying up to there, and she gets to see like what it is to kind of meet with it's through their iLab and meet with the teams at Harvard and how they, what a pitch looks like and what it is in terms of what is venture capital, that kind of stuff. So it'll be another world. So when she applies to school, she'll get to kind of use some of that moving forward.
And is this what she wants to do?
Yeah. So she was always bound and determined, I want to be a doctor in medicine. And I was like, well, let me show you the pathway of that. I must be supportive. And then she got to see kind of just the excitement, the passion, the freedom around entrepreneurship and business and what it takes to actually build something from start to finish. And like, how you can, for example, as a physician, you're affecting and supporting and changing lives within this ecosystem. But as an entrepreneur, your reach goes, nationally, if not globally, because of what you're doing. So just making that impact.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. And thank you for what you're doing. I think it's very important work. It's exciting. For a techie, it's fascinating because of what you're doing, the nuts and bolts of it, but the impact that you're going to have on the community.
Look at you, man! I'm geeking out over here.
No,
Dude.
I couldn't even get audio right.
You've worked your butt off, man. This is like the I'd love to show her this and just show her like.
No, bring it by anytime.
When you work hard, you get to see like look at the fruits of your labor. Because I always said, you can have anything you want. You just got to work hard, and you just got to meet the right people. And I think a lot of it is just the aspect of networking too.
Curiosity, really. I mean, you have to be curious about solving problems and learning new things. So, but again, thank you for your time today. Let's go get some lunch, and we'll do this again with better audio.
Hey, I like it like this. I made a comment about Grandma's basement. We got a little bit of it out here. I love it.
Well, there's a comment. This is, hello, sir. Please reply. You want to reply?
Let's do it. Hey, is that Ritesh? Good to see you.
Yeah. Hi, Ritesh. We replied. But thanks for joining us today. Go check out other content on our channels. We'll be live here again next week, and hope to hear from you. So awesome. Thank you, Justin.
Always a pleasure.
Take care, man.
Yes.
Bye-bye. Let's see if I can turn this off.